Okay.
Speaking of the eye rolls, I'm going to try on my Mac server.
Commodore, you're a weird person.
Don't worry, it runs Debian.
Oh, that's wrong. Back noise to launch. Oh, that's... Tux is having a seizure, man. Okay. James, you were cutting out all Sean. I haven't heard from you or from any of y'all yet on this. Do any of y'all have anything to add to the fact that Steve Jobs just flat out got on stage last week and told many outright lies?
Misquoting Samsung.
Well, I was actually inclined to let that one go. Bits who actually brought that back up. But I'm referring more to the fact that he got on stage and claimed things like Apple is the first to have a mobile dual-core. Apple has 90% market share in the mobile arena. It's like, all these little just... don't worry about the facts.
Well, even that's not true.
It's like the 90% market share is an outright lie, but the dual-core one was just a... What, really? So the other 4 dual-core devices don't count? Okay. It's like...
Maybe he just locked the Zoom out of his mind like we did.
He spent 30 minutes talking about it and Android! How could he forgot?
I didn't say that he forgot. I said that he locked it out of his mind.
After just talking about it. Okay. Let me see. Dell's got one. Motorola's got one. Then there's the 2 other brands you probably haven't heard of. There's 4 dual-core devices. Okay.
Oh, what about the 9% market share thing?
Oh no, they've already apologized for that actually.
Really?
They've
But they
already...
didn't get an emergency keynote for that, didn't they?
Okay.
Well, just stop fucking calling me!
Samsung guy about the Galaxy Tab.
Well, yeah, they had to apologize to the Samsung guy, but they've also retracted the 90% market share. They have acknowledged that they are slightly less than 75. Because it was made very clear that they had that about a fourth of the market had been overtaken.
Mark's still done.
Yeah,
Or no, Mark's still done.
by Android of all things.
Subscribe to the Aragorn philosophy of life.
Okay, so unless anybody has anything else to say on that, what do we think? I can't help but want to throw up when I look at this comparison chart of the data plans that are available for mobile devices. I just...
I'll switch to screen so that we can actually show this off.
Sure, go ahead. If you can. Nope. Okay. Okay, Leo, put only your... You know what? Screw it. I'm just going to superimpose it in. There we go. That's what I wanted. You know what? Leave your face on. I'll impose an image in afterwards because that's not working right. Anyways, I can't decide who's ripping you off more. Y'all have a vote there, AT&T or Verizon?
They're ripping you off equal.
They both rip you off. What's the point? What's the difference?
Nah, I figure all telecoms are evil.
All telecoms are evil? For those of you who haven't been paying attention, let me explain what your modern data plans are. You can have 250 megabytes for $15, circa AT&T. You can have a gig for $20, circa Verizon. You can have 2 gigs for $25, circa AT&T. You can have 3 gigs for $35, circa AT&T.
That one was Verizon, according to
that one's Verizon, I'm sorry. Interestingly enough, I think that's actually the same price that would be from AT&T. I can't remember off the top of my head if per gig of overage is 20 or 10 bucks at AT&T, because they charge you by the gig, and it's either 10 bucks a month or 20 bucks a month for every additional gig, which would mean if it's 10 bucks a month, the 3 gig and 5 gig plans from Verizon are the same price they would be for AT&T, as is the 80 gigabyte, because it'd be $10 a gig. But I don't know that for a fact. I'm trying to remember what the actual overage was. But I mean, that's ridiculous. It really is. You know, welcome to $1,200 a year data. I mean, Like, I'm glad I'm grandfathered in. Okay, moving on to more Apple goody business. Anybody have any thoughts about the fact that Apple's being more open about the fact that their end-all goal with iOS is to take over the education system?
Say that again.
I take it y'all hadn't been following that. It's like,
Isn't it kind of the match at the beginning?
Having stuff distributed on iPads and stuff like that.
well, here's my honest tinfoil hatness. And I can't believe you lost the hat, Leo.
They tried this in the 80s.
Yeah, but I think their plan is to convince the schools that everything, all the books, all the lectures, everything need to go through iTunes, which incidentally enough just happens to work best with iOS. And we need to just give the future of education over to Apple Inc.
I think they'll buy that.
Well, you know, that is 1984 at its finest, and I really do.
It just happened a few years late.
You know, they're now being very public about this. You know, they got up with that touchy-feely announcement last week. You know, it's like, well, all these kids need iPads and stuff, and you know, now they're trying to convince all the colleges and educators that, well, you know, y'all should really, instead of investing in actual computers, you should be moving everything over to iOS, because, you know, well, all the kids are going to buy iPads anyways. So if you lock them in where to do their classwork, they need iOS. Well, that's a win-win all around, you know. It's like,
No, it just wins up for Apple, because with any other alternative, it was like, I think almost must lead to Apple. That's what Apple wants.
I hope people see through this bullshit, but it really does scare me. It does. I am deathly afraid that, you know, sometime in the next decade I'm gonna have kids, and I'm gonna send them to their first day of kindergarten, and they're gonna come back to me and go. They're going to come back to me with that school supply list, and I'm going to have the Steve Jobs wish list. Your child will need 1 iMac, 1 iPad, 1 iPhone, 1 Apple iOS subscription, and, of course, their first soul sacrificed at the altar of Steve. What?
Don't forget you have to give them an arm and a leg in your firstborn.
No. Well, see, he'll already have my firstborn, because my firstborn will have to become a Macian to do his classwork.
Well, it's not everybody, you know, doing this, so I wouldn't worry too much. I think that Apple, the time of Apple being so popular and controlling, you know, having, you know, huge profits.
What about this iPhone thing?
Say that again?
What about this iPhone thing, you know, this pair thing? It's a Mac, you know? That show's pretty popular because this whole iWorld thing is so cool and hip, you know?
Well, but see, I hope James is right. That's the perception right now. Oh, I've stuck this nice little shiny thing with an Apple-like logo in somebody's hand. They must be intelligent. Oh, I've personally deducted
Apple-like logo in somebody's hand.
Yeah. Well, they can't have it be an actual Apple logo, because then Apple Inc. will sue them for perpetuating the myth that geeks like Apple.
It'll be a 666.
No, they weren't geeks. They were just like kids, like having fun putting up on the show. One of them was a geek, but they were all Apple users. One of them was an Apple geek, but they're all geeks. No, they're not all geeks. They're just kids trying to put up a TV show on the internet.
What is there an actual show that they do this on?
No, it's like a pretend thing. Like it's in the show. It's on Nickelodeon. It's called iCarly. It's about some kids like making a show on the internet.
Incidentally enough, Bit just showed up for a chime in.
Hey, that's gonna be an orgy.
What's up?
Hey, Marcel.
How y'all doing?
We were covering the fact that Apple's making it more transparent that their end-all goal for iOS is to take over the educational system.
I didn't hear that last part. You're talking about iOS what now?
We were covering the fact that Apple's making it more transparent, at least in some respects, that their end-all goal for iOS is to take over the educational system.
Ah. Okay.
The third story in iWorld section.
Alright.
Yeah, little Jimmy would have to bring an iPad to school.
Let's see.
I mean, that's the perfect world for Apple if every school kid ultimately has to buy an iOS device and a Mac. That is the dream world for Apple, but if I can't think of anything that reeks 1984 more, like I said before. I can't. That's like that will be 1984. It will be official.
But nobody's actually read the book. You know, like you can't really read it on the iPad. You can't even read it on the Kindle store because the only way to read it on the Kindle is a part of the book.
Now that's funny. You know, incidentally enough, can you get Fahrenheit 415 or 451?
Actually, Fahrenheit 451 isn't about censorship. It's about video killed the radio star. That's basically what it's about.
Well, and it's about the idea that all the books are gone because they're just not important anymore. But similar apocalyptic shot. Freedom of knowledge is one of the key things for that. So I don't know. As long as a kid and college student's education doesn't dictate what platform they are allowed to use, I could give a shit what it's compatible with. But when it starts dictating what they have to use, which incidentally is already done a little bit, and Apple definitely has the sell on this because right now we dictate that, well, you should just use Microsoft, which I have just as big a problem with. I would have a problem with why I would love this world. I would have a problem with them sending me home with the thing, your kid must switch to PC Linux OS, he must never use Windows, he must never learn anything about OS. I'd have a problem with that too, even though that's my dream house.
I certainly have a problem with that.
Wow.
No, they must use Gentoo.
Ah!
I didn't want anyone to ever use a computer, huh?
Exactly.
And of course, in Commodore's house would be must never make a Frankentosh.
Oh dear God.
So I don't know. I thought this poll, will people who have an iPad buy an iPad too? On the articles of pointless articles. Okay, let's take a senseless survey right now. How many of the 15 million people who bought an iPad do you think are going to go rush out and buy an iPad too?
They say, screw this BS. Like, why that? What the hell?
Yeah, I don't think many at all. But I mean, I could be wrong.
I think a lot, actually.
Okay, so wait a minute. The three answers are: Commodore says they're all pissed and aren't going to. What did you say, Bit?
I don't think it's going to be another 15 million, but I could be wrong. Sure, there'll be some adopters. The Apple demographics show people who, fiend for the next product. So I'm sure. Maybe half that number, maybe 7 million or so.
Well, and if you read this article, that's basically what it was. It was one of these Apple piners who was trying to convince his wife that, despite the fact that his iPad is worth half what he paid for is worth less than half what he paid for it and being worth less every day, that he needs to rush out and go buy a new iPad 2.
Yeah.
And then the new iPad 3 and the new iPad 4, then and so on and so forth.
I think the biggest ass kicking any Apple consumer got was with the MacBook Air when it first came out, and people paid thousands. And I don't even know how much it was, close to $4,000. And
What about the Apple TV? They did the reverse of that.
Yeah, how much was the Apple TV? Was what?
It's
$200.
And it's $100 now, so it's not like.
Well, back then, it actually had a hard drive. You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But don't call it Apple TV, please, in my presence. Just call it Apple Xbox Plus.
Yeah, the real Apple TV is your Mac Mini.
Yes.
Which Apple doesn't like. And this is, it wouldn't surprise me if they sell another 15 of them. Although my guess is, here's the thing. If I had to guess, I'd say they're at least going to do 10. And the reason I say they're going to do 10 is I'm sure there's people that didn't buy an iPad because they're like, I love Apple, but I will never buy Gen 1 Apple.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's those people who were waiting for the iPad 2. They're like, I want an iPad. I want Steve Jobs' wet dream, but I don't want Gen 1. I've been through this cycle. Then there's also what isn't going to happen this go-around is something that happened the last go-around. And that was all these people who went out and bought a Wi-Fi-only iPad, and then 2 weeks later, because they couldn't wait the 2 weeks, bought a 3G iPad.
Yeah.
Since they both launch at the same time this go-around, those people will be buying one iPad and one iPad only. We hope.
I hate the fact that and that's not all just Apple, but anybody, their Wi-Fi version tablets, for some reason, they make GPS model specific when all they need to do is detect if the data is present. So we can tether and actually tether GPS to the tablet.
Well, yeah. There's that aspect too.
I mean, how much more locking? I mean, it's not, and like I said, it's not just Apple, but I've noticed that with the other tablets that are coming out that you have Wi-Fi and forget about GPS.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I know. I don't know. Honestly, they want you to buy the cell phone. All of these, including the Android one, they want you to buy the 3G version. As we were discussing earlier, the Zoom could easily be $400 if Motorola and Verizon have the will to do it, but they're not going to. I hope they decide to do that sometime this summer. I'll go out and buy one, even with the $80. That is something we should do here. We should do a full roundup in the cost of ownership of all the various choices, because one of the advantages you have right now, does anybody know if it's possible to buy an iPad without signing a contract?
Yeah, well, you mean the Wi-Fi version, but you mean to get the 3G?
Yeah, could you buy an AT&T or Verizon iPad without signing any Verizon or AT&T contract? Like, could you be month to month? So if you decided, well, I want this thing and I want mobile data for it, but I only want to pay for mobile data when I'm doing my summer holiday or my Christmas holiday or when I actually need mobile data.
Well, I have no idea. I don't know.
Hey, we should look. We should look into that and see.
I didn't even know there was a CDMA iPad. Is there?
There is going to be.
There is.
On this iPad too.
So here's what Steve promised last week. He said they're going to get a Verizon and an AT&T iPad, and both.
It's gonna be white.
And both of them are going to have white and black ones.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the last thing, because Leo is very annoyed that we're running so long.
I'm not annoyed. I'm just doing something else.
What do we think about these Pioneer Apple Link, basically radios?
I don't know much about them.
They're weird. This is basically something that will only work with Apple.
Mm-hmm.
It's they have various pricings. The high end one, the 10. Let's say what is it? The 1021 has an Ethernet cable, so it can actually do the AirPlay stuff. Basically, this is a radio that costs upwards of $550 that is designed to play your iLife stuff. It's designed to sync with iOS and iTunes. And I see this being adopted by all those Apple households, but it's one of those things.
Is this an official Apple thing that's third party or what?
No,
it's Pioneer introduces a new Apple.
But is it done with Apple's blessing or what? Or is it just like one of those third party things? I don't know.
It's a third party thing, and that brings up a point I'm actually wondering on here, is that I'm sure Apple intention with all this AirPlay stuff was at some point Apple intended to either add this to Apple TV or they wanted to sell you an Apple radio. And Pioneers basically go, well, we're going to create that device now, ahead of Apple's timetable. So I'm honestly wondering, anybody who invests in this, if it's going to keep working going forward, or if Apple's going to break it where it will only work with the thing Apple obviously has planned at some point down the road to do this job.
I suppose this thing would require Wi-Fi, and then, I don't know, you'd update the firmware via Wi-Fi or something.
So
yeah, because, does anybody know how this AirPlay thing works nowadays? Like the API said, so what?
No, I've never used it.
No,
is it in the SDK or what,
Well, and they call it AirPlay, but they're talking about it has an Ethernet port. I'm wondering if it really works over the air.
So it's WirePlay.
Well, no, it's AirPlay, because that's what it's called.
Well, it's playing with wires, though.
Oh, but it does say wirelessly stream, so it is AirPlay. But what is it? And this is kind of what Bid and me were talking about the other day, in that there's no reason you shouldn't be able to just wirelessly stream and sync and do things from your iOS device to anything else. And that would be what this would be. But you need what you need is iOS 4.2 or a computer running iTunes 10.1 or later on a compatible device. So
okay, this is nothing more really than, I'm reading AirPlay. I mean, I've never used it. It seems to me that Apple licenses out to manufacturers such as Denon and B&W, JBL, basically the ability to receive whatever Apple to these speakers or whatever.
Right. Basically, what this is a $550 relay switch for your iTunes collection. Apologies. Ganja.
This is getting real staticky.
Yeah, anyways, and I'm just, I see that, and I'm honestly wondering how many of these will sell, because it's basically a $550 pair of speakers, for lack of a better word, and it's just, I don't know, I guess Bit's the one who's following this most, what is your general impression of this? Waste of money, worth buying?
My opinion is, why does it have to be an Apple thing? To me, it should just be a default technology thing. More options. I should just be able to say, hey, I want to stream out, my audio or iTunes, whatever, via Bluetooth or whatever they're doing. To me, it doesn't need to be branded under Apple to say, oh, we're going to have our participating third-party companies like Pioneer and stuff and do it. I don't know. That's the way I look at it.
Boy, we really are changing your religion every day, aren't we? It's like, hey, Commodore and James, any thoughts on that?
No, not really. I haven't been following this that closely.
Okay.
Same here.
How long do y'all give Android to be #1 in the world for mobile OSs? Another year?
It already is.
In the U.S. it is, but not in the world.
Not in the world. It's only in the U.S.
Oh, I don't think it'll take much time at all.
I was in the UK though.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be the top OS pretty quick.
Yeah, I'd say another year.
Whether or not it does it this year or it takes it 3 is going to depend what WebOS does this year. Because WebOS could, like a third party, like a strong third party candidate, at the least split it. Split the alternative vote for this year, so it could keep Android from taking dominance planet-wide.
But today I've been reading all these posts about how, you can't judge iOS because Android has so many phones and all, blah, blah, blah. It's all beginning. All the hypocrisy is going to start coming out now. All the days when all the Apple fanboys started bragging about how iOS was #1, and now that it's not, we're still better type thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't have it both ways.
Well,
Yeah, they can, because they're Apple.
well,
Commodore's been reading all my tweets.
Watch your YouTube video.
it's
some tweets every now and then, but
should we just write Steve Jobs' keynote for iPad 3 announcement now? Well, you see, we've been beaten.
Oh, God.
We lost. It was a good run, but we've been beaten.
I mean, but I don't consider defeat. Look, Apple's still going to laugh to the bank. 15 million iPads sold, and how many iPhones? It's an ungodly number. But so they're going to be happy with the amount of money they put in the bank. That's for sure. But yeah, they're not going to maintain market share control.
Oh no, and I'm sure they'll. Honestly, they can't lose it fast enough for me, because as soon as they fall below that 50%, if they go try and convince the educators to turn over control of the future of books to Apple, they'll just kind of look at them like, what? On what planet are we going to turn the future of everything over to the fall behinder?
Yeah.
Which is part of why I think they're putting such a push on that. I think their game plan to salvage iOS market share thing is basically to make it is to pull a card out of the Microsoftian hat, which is basically, you can't live without us. You need us to do everything.
You must use Microsoft Word. You must use PowerPoint. You must use Excel. You can't use anything else. OpenOffice, LibreOffice, they don't exist. Well, LibreOffice doesn't exist.
No, you're talking about that teacher from the office that is like, the paper was improperly formatted, and that caused my student to get a lower grade. It's like,
well, you can blame Microsoft on that.
God. Yeah, yes. Go ahead.
Hey, did you guys hear that the iPad 2 dual-core might be 2 Cortex-A chips?
No. I'm hearing rumors like that left and right. Here's what I'm officially waiting for. I am waiting until the week after, until next week. About mid next week, I expect somebody who have bought an iPad 2 and completely torn it apart, because the thing comes out Friday. They'll do a full teardown, and we'll know the actual facts. And that's what
I was going to say. If it is 2 Cortex-A specifications, in other words, 2 Apple A4 chips, Apple has boxed themselves into a 1 gigahertz barrier until they decide to use the Cortex-9 specification.
And that would be interesting if that's what they've done, because if that's how they did that, that means the iPad 2 is quite literally just 2 iPad 1s stuck together.
Right.
Because it's double the RAM, and it's the same processor put in twice.
Then they did that with the G5, the G5 Quad. They had 2 dual cores instead of one dual core.
You're talking about Intel. Yeah, Intel was known for doing that. Pasting cores and stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah, they basically let them get a hold of the bridge.
But and it's interesting because they said twice as fast. But I was listening to a show, Hypercritical, I think it was called, and they were discussing that if it were truly an A9 specification, that you would have well more than 2 times as fast because the instructions are out of order instruction sets. So basically, you gain a big execution advantage over the A8 chip. So.
Well, but see, this comes down to because when Apple gets up and says things like blah times as fast, they just kind of pick, they like nice round numbers, and of course.
They never say like 1.21 times anything,
No, they say like on the graphics thing, it's 9 times as fast. It's twice as fast. It's it's more.
Stephen Colbert. There was a Stephen Colbert that had that video. He goes, yes. Now with the iPad 2, you can get. I can see. What did he say? I cannot watch Flash 9 times as fast or something like that. It was hilarious. I was just laughing. It was great.
Oh, that's sick. Anything else we want to go into, or do we want to kind of tail off? Or
well, I would like if you want to get into iWorld on Thursday, because look at that story talking about the iPad 2 early benchmarks from CNET, and they're saying that it's not as impressive. I mean, it's really the same performance.
Oh, really? So it's really not optimized for multi-core.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting there. Okay.
But somewhat the iOS update to make things go faster.
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, obviously programmers across all platforms that use dual core and want to take advantage of the multi-thread.
What if it happened to Grand Central Dispatch? All this hype we heard with Snow Leopard, but it hasn't gone anywhere.
Well, I've read, I know, and I said that on my YouTube channel that Grand Central Dispatch. I said I highly doubt that developers. It's nice. It's an ingenious move on Apple to do, but I just not seeing programmers embrace it. And in the dev notes of Apple, it does say that GCD is supposedly present there and gives you kind of instructions on what to do in their mobile environment. But obviously, it's not being deployed.
You know what? I would be happy if the iPad 2 is at a minimum fast enough to run a web-based application. If it could at least do that. If it could at least, run an HTML5 cloud app. If it could do that, I would think it's a monumental improvement over the iPad. Because the iPad couldn't do that. The iPad 2 can do that. Okay.
What, run HTML5? What are you talking about?
If you took the iPad to HTML5 demos, like the things that are like supposed to replace Flash, because Apple hates Flash. If you took it to these, it couldn't run them.
I didn't know that.
Interestingly enough, a Nexus 1 could.
Well, hey, isn't it the same as the iAd problem? I mean, I posted some tweets today about how iAds they dropped their price. And vendors are saying that they're getting all kinds of pressure calls from Apple because they cannot sell market space for their advertisers, and a lot of programmers are vouching for this and saying, yeah, their CPM is way down. So I find it interesting that some of the complaints were, entry level of price is problem number 1, but problem number 2 is that iAds don't run anywhere else. Surprise, surprise. Isn't HTML5 the whole thing that Jobs wrote the letter on and being an open standard? What standard other than to run for Apple? I mean, it's just more hypocrisy, building and building and building.
Well, it's not that it isn't an open standard stuff. It's just that an iPad isn't powerful enough to run that stuff.
So
that was one of the things. We talk about Microsoft going around with money, but that was actually something Apple did just before the iPad and just after the iPad launch. They went around with money trying to get people to write HTML5 demo sites to show off HTML5 and show what it could be and yada 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 yada. But they wanted them written for the iPad, and they're like, the iPad can't run them.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Apple puts everything in the front, like all pretty shiny stuff, but when it comes to the core of it, they don't really do much to it,
No.
Okay.
I'm just still hung on the iAd thing. You know how we were just discussing how apps don't really matter the size of the App Store. I mean, it goes to show these vendors that are saying they're not going to renew with iAds, and that everybody wanted just the top apps. They all wanted advertisement slots for the top selling applications, and all those are sold out. And today I was tweeting today. I was like saying, well, gee, isn't there like a million other apps out there? I mean, isn't that the point? You know, to want to advertise on all the other applications?
Well, but think about it.
My point is that most of the applications are garbage. You know, that was my point.
Well, and, you know, but it's the same principle behind advertising on the web. You know, there's we have like 1 million websites created a day, but everybody wants to advertise on, like, if you're not in the top 10% of traffic, who wants to advertise on you? Oh, well, but we will be someday. Just give us money so we can get there. Yeah, no, talk to me when you get there. It's like...
Right.
So, all right. Unless there's anything else we want to go in, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. We can keep talking, but or is there anything else we want to rehash on this?
Yeah, all the people that are watching, they now know that we do talk for like an hour after.
Oh yeah, most of that's actually made it in the recording this time. That's like, okay, I'm gonna stop the recording. But anything else we want to go? Okay.
Bye bye everyone. I'm the voice in the sky.
Bye bye. Yeah, so we have Tweedledee and Doe. You know, we have Bit, Commodore, and James. Peace out, all.